Hey guys, welcome to another Trade Genius podcast. Bob and Phil here as always. We got another thing developing in the market we want to talk to you guys about. So pay close attention. We may be in for another sovereign crisis. We're going to talk about which countries are in play here and how that affects us. So let's dive in.
Trade Genius.
Hey guys, really briefly before we jump into this video, appreciate all the likes and subscribes. And if you can ring that notification button, that really helps us out. In addition to that, if you guys don't mind, head over to tradegenius.co. Check out our specials we have over there. There's a number of different specials with different packages for all different experience types. If you're more into education, we have a package for that. If you just like to get into the room, primarily, we have a package for that as well, where you can see where we're calling out trades and things like that live and also posting signals into our Discord signal rooms. So check it out, tradegenius.co. Appreciate you doing that. So, Bob, our boys over in the East, they're not looking so good.
Yeah, so let's talk the Japanese yen first. So they broke their peg, and that made the yen go up in value. Mm-hmm. And then they're back to the same games again. If you look at this chart here, so from April till now, the yen is falling. And this is a big move. This is like 8% reduction in purchasing power for the Japanese people. It's absolutely incredible to me, Phil. And a lot of times, you always heard the story of the Japanese housewife, right? So what they do is they short the yen and then they buy in a stronger currency like the dollar. And so the dollar's been going up, Japanese yen has been going down, and money is being allocated from Japan into the U.S. markets. And so we're probably at a point now again, does the Japanese Bank of Japan intervene again? Because this new bank president's a little bit more hawkish, and he may not have a choice but to move that peg again from 0.5 and go higher. So the Japanese are at risk of losing control of their currency. But Phil, they're not the only one. The next one we're going to talk about is even scarier because this is the Chinese, and there's a phrase out there called the Minsky moment. I'm sure you've heard about it, but it's a point where no matter what you do in terms of adding debt to your currency to manipulate it, you've lost control of your currency. Right. And China has lost control of their currency. The difference in Japan and China is that the Japanese have high internal savings, but the Chinese they're in debt up to their eyeballs, Phil, internally, domestically. And now they have a closed capital market. And so, if they ever opened their capital market, the yuan would just probably crater. And what they're doing now is that in the past, the model has always been when in doubt, stimulate, right? Mm-hmm. Well, now they're stimulating. There's no projects. The people either can't borrow or won't borrow any more money. And the governments, the local and state governments, they're in hawk now too. So really what they're saying now, Phil, is that there's no pristine collateral left in China. So they've reached the end. They're going to the cage at the casino and they have nothing more to pledge. And it's a big problem. And so what's going to probably happen here is that, set the stock market aside for a second, is the Chinese will start to panic and they don't want their people to lose their jobs. They're going to force these companies probably to work with no profit at all. And they're going to export out, basically deflation around the world. And that's going to cause issues in Europe and the United States in terms of companies' profitability because they're going to put a lot of pressure on domestic producers. Right. And so it's an issue. And at the same time, you noticed this week, oil has now settled down. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about natural gas. Beautiful cup and handle in natural gas right now. And if they start losing control of the energy markets at the same time, their currencies are falling. That's called a failed state, Phil.
Indeed. And the other thing, Bob, too, is the last time the yen went into this spiral, I think was when the bond market, right? People may or may not realize that the Japanese 10-year bond market has an artificial cap on their rates, right? Currently it's 0.5. They had to raise it though, because last year the yen started to do this thing again, right? We can flip back to that chart and we saw them having to relent and raise that cap to 0.5. They couldn't. That means that there was so much bearishness in their bond market or lack of buyers that no matter how much yen they printed, they still couldn't keep the yield down because they're printing yen essentially to buy their bonds to keep the yields down, right? If you buy bonds, yields go down, but they couldn't overcome the market. So then they raised it to 0.5. And so they've been able to hold it there. But, when we were in this situation last year, as the yen started to just really crater, I mean, it's really waterfalling over. The market went down in the S&P 500 went from August down into October, I think it was, rather dramatically. And that also coincided with the liquidity also going south. So basically, we're in the same situation, Bob, where both yen and liquidity are going south. And now you're looking at 3 rate hikes, I think, now in the Fed funds futures. And you're looking at, we have rates at 5.25, and they've been raised. So basically 5% in a short amount of time, right? In less than 2 years. Normally, historically, something breaks.
Yeah. You know what else happened today? The Supreme Court rejected the student loan giveaway.
Yeah.
And so, you're getting people getting their credit card interest rates reset at the same time they're getting their student loan bills reset. So it's going to be really interesting as we roll into the fall. Today, you can't really look at the markets are kind of weird today because it's quarter end, and JP Morgan has a collar that I think blew up on them today.
Yeah.
But I think we're at record levels again in terms of, and you already threw the chart up, so I'm going to shut up and let you talk about this chart. This is amazing. I think this is the highest it's ever been in the post-COVID liquidity era.
Yeah. So, this is all calibrated to quantitative tightening, right? And if you're in a quantitative easing environment, then fair value, you have to adjust what you expect fair value to be because that's a little different. But when you're in quantitative tightening environment, such as we're in now, these are the levels in red where typically the market can get away from, fair value, meaning that as liquidity moves up and down, so is fair value for this market. Well, as you can see, we got another Jaws going on here. What I mean by Jaws is where the market's going up here, but liquidity is going down. And we saw this most evident in August, and you're getting even a more dramatic Jaws here going into this quarterly expiration, right? So it's not unusual to get a pump into the quarter end, and maybe JP Morgan's collar breaking is exasperating this a little bit, also going into the 4th of July weekend. But if you guys pay attention to what goes on with this market and liquidity, anytime you get a bit of a divergence, like here was a divergence, you snap back down, right? Here's a divergence, you snap back down. I would be amazed if we didn't snap back down to some degree here, especially going into next week after the holiday, Bob. It's just the environment that we're in, and liquidity reigns supreme.
Yeah, and if you look at the premiums, I mean, today was a big day for premium expiration, and usually there's a knock-on reverb on that the next couple trading days in the following week because there's nobody else to press, right? Because
right.
The dealers aren't taking on more calls, because people they're not adding to them. So when you have premium collapse, you usually get the price will move in the opposite direction as it's moving. So I'd be surprised if next week's a green week, but we're in absolute silly season right now. So we have to wait to the end of the month to get the Fed meeting, believe it or not. So we're going to have earnings ahead of that too. And I'd be surprised if earnings are coming in hot. I'll give you guys another anecdote. I live out here in California, and 2 things happened this week. So one is that restaurants have been full here. I also live in a tourist area. So usually the off season, the locals keep everything pumping. And during the summer season, the locals go on vacation, but the tourists come in and pump. Well, the restaurants here have not been full for the last couple weeks, which is really interesting to me. And I went to on vacation, and they were down quite a bit, like 1/3. And then I went ahead and I'm doing some work in my yard, and I had to buy some tile for hardscaping. I went to a couple places, Phil, and asked the guy how's business. He goes, it's been dead since Easter. And that's kind of funny because that's the 3rd or 4th time I've heard somebody say something happened after tax season, which was right around Easter, that we've never recovered from. And so whatever this latency effect is having in the market is driven purely by derivatives right now. So we'll just have to see when they stop and then have the market come back to reality.
Right. And sometimes too, you'll get a divergent high on a risk off signal too. That happened back here, and it happened over here too. But usually within a week, you're starting to see things play out. Primarily what we look for in that situation is that liquidity continues to roll off and not start to kick back up. Like here we had a risk off, market kind of tried to roll over, it didn't go anywhere, and then we saw liquidity start to ramp back up. And so that's something you keep an eye on. But right now we're just getting the biggest divergence we've ever seen. So it's even though the market's up, going up in the holiday and everybody's feeling really good, again, the foundation here is very, very shaky. So just got to be careful as we go into next week. So yeah,
Yep.
Bob, with that, I guess we'll wrap it up. Thanks guys for watching. Please hit like and subscribe. Please smash that notification bell and set it to all if you can. That really helps out our channel. Also check out our specials over at tradegenius.co. We'd love to see you in the room where we are trading every day, all day. So we'll see you guys soon. Take care.
Trade Genius.